Hello and welcome guys, this is a terrain chunking tutorial. So we're going to create this. When you move around, the terrain keeps generating around you in chunks. So yeah, what I've got here is a camera rig for a flying camera. This is the script. We got a pervert node and a camera 3D inside the pervert node, and the pervert is set to 000. We got just a few speeds, normal speed and fast speed. If we push the sprint button, then we move faster, and then we gotta raise and lower the camera and then move in direction. Okay, we got the main node with a world and a world 3D with a world environment and a directional light 3D nodes. And then this is an example of the chunk. It's just a mesh instance 3D set to 100 by 100, and then it's got a label 3D as a child. So this is going to be our chunk, but we're going to generate it in code. So on the main node we got a terrain gen script, and this handles the generation of the chunks. So we got a player node, and our player is the camera. We added our camera rig to the camera group, and then we find it and we assign it. We got a load chunks method, the unload chunks function, and a get coordinate function. So in the load chunks, we loop through a range using the center. We do a little bit of math, minus the load radius, and then over here we add load radius plus 1, and that's the range. So the load radius is the area, the amount of tiles basically, the amount of chunks in a row. So this is a 9 by 9. If we set it to 4, if we set this to 2, it'll be 5 by 5. We can go and run that. Now it'll be 5 by 5. So you see there's 5 per row. And then yeah, in the load we were by the load chunks method. So we create the coordinate for it. We check if it's in the chunks dictionary that we created over here, and if it is, we continue. Otherwise we create the chunk, we create the mesh instance 3D, create the plane mesh, set the size to 100 by 100, and then assign it to the mesh of the chunk of them, which is a mesh instance 3D. We create the material, set the random color, and then set the material override to material. We add the chunk to the main node, and then we set the position over here and set the coordinate of we assign the chunk to the dictionary. We also create a label 3D node, and we set up a few settings and then add it as a child of the chunk. In the unload method, we loop through the keys, and then we check if it's inside the range of the load radius, and if it's not, then we delete the chunk and erase it from the chunks dictionary. Erase the coordinate from the chunks dictionary. And then this is a get coordinate. To get the coordinate, we divide by the chunk size using the position, and that's the simple code. And then in the process, we update every frame, and we unload the chunks and load the chunks. We get the player's coordinate obviously, and then we unload the chunks. We load the chunks and unload the chunks. This is not the best way to do it, but it's just for testing purposes, and we're not using high poly meshes, so it's simple enough for testing purposes. So that's the tutorial, guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Give this video a like and subscribe.